I think tonight, because of the possibility of us being knocked offline by thunder and lightning, um, what I'd like to do is ask you how things are going for you for a couple of reasons. One, we haven't been able to be here a little bit in the last month. We've been out twice, I think, in the last month or the last 5 weeks. So I know that you're all probably fine, but I'm happy to see you. And over the course of the last 6, maybe 8 weeks, or maybe the last 5 or 6 satsangs, which may be a longer time, I've gone over some of the core or essential understandings that are necessary to really understand what the inquiry is about and what we're doing. So there have been a couple of things that I've talked about. I can't remember them all, but I did talk about Ramana's teaching. Just keep quiet. And before that, I talked about a previous satsang. I talked about the perception or the conception that everything is empty. Everything is going on, but it is empty. And I also talked about the understanding that what is happening here is happening apparently and seems real. And of course, the experience you're having is real. But I asked you the question, whose life is it anyway? Is it really mine? Or am I just a vehicle for the Supreme, for consciousness itself, to find expression and to come to understanding of its own nature? All of these videos, by the way, have now been posted on YouTube. So if you missed any of those conversations and you're interested, you can go to Still Mountain Satsang on YouTube or to Facebook, and those videos are there for you to have a look at. But it occurs to me, as there's been a couple of breaks in the kind of flow of information there, that I haven't really had the opportunity to check in with some of you to see whether or not this has been helpful for you, whether it has made a difference in your practice of the inquiry, whether it has brought you anything new and exciting. And that's not really my intention, to give you things new and exciting. But it is helpful sometimes to have a knowledge of the principles of Advaita as I've experienced them. And hopefully the reason that I share those things with you, those perceptions with you, is so that you can check for yourself in your own experience. Is this true for me? Is it possible for me to see in the way of an Advaita master? And seeing this, knowing this, coming to a new perception, a new conception, how does that impact the way in which I see myself move in the world and understand what the purpose of the inquiry is? So before we get knocked off the air here tonight by the lightning, which I can hear, the thunder is coming closer, I'd like to offer you the opportunity just to speak, to ask questions, to clarify anything that I've talked about over the last few weeks, or to tell me your experience. Tell us all your experience if you've been looking at the things that I've been sharing with you. So if you'd like to say something, just turn your microphone on.
Hi, Rishiji.
Hello, Phil.
I the talk you gave, one of the recent talks you gave around being silent, was very profound for me, and yeah, my first experience with satsang was in the early '90s with meeting Gangaji in New Mexico, and I remember her saying, that Papaji said to her, just stop. And this is like, been with me and for a long time. And I experienced that. And I feel like I experience it more periods of I'm not sure if, the words here are a little off, that I can just stop, but that stopping can happen. It does seem to be that there's some kind of choice in a moment, which is some question for me around choice, volition, and will, because when I have the experience of like, oh, I can rest and kind of drop out of all the upstairs activity and be here, then it seems like somehow I'm being successful. And then when I'm just kind of lost for hours or days and don't even realize that I am, then there can be a habit of feeling personally responsible for that as well. Like,
yes.
Now I'm not successful,
Yes.
Which is still the same kind of identifying with this thread of, me and how I do and by getting somewhere, and
Yes.
which I can hear even as I'm sharing. It's like looking for something. Yeah.
Well, I will say this while you're while you're pausing there, just to give you a moment to think, I will say this, and this is good for everyone to hear this. One of the things that we always overlook, because the mind goes into this thing of, oh, I've been lost, and somehow I've missed it again, or I've lost it again, and it goes into that self contradictory kind of, oh, I missed it again. But the thing that we've overlooked in that is that there was a moment of crystal clarity before we went into that identification with what happened in the last few days, let's say. And that moment of crystal clarity is, oh, I was lost. Now I'm back. I know that because I can see that I'm back. If you undertake this kind of recognition, if you come to this kind of remembrance, then what happens is you don't look back into where you've been in the cloud of dust or the cloud of unknowing, let's say, for the last 3 or 4 days or a week. Instead, you go forward into clarity. You stay in the clarity. Oh, I was lost. Now I am found. stay here, then that judging mind that has that conditioned habit of going in and saying, oh, I failed again. Now we're working at undermining that. And we don't work at it by doing something really strongly intentional. We work at it by recognizing, oh, I am back. Now I am clear. In this moment, I am clear. And we go forward in that clarity rather than backward into whatever the experience was a moment ago, an hour ago, a day ago. Okay?
Thank you. That's helpful. Like just acknowledging that the seeing is clarity.
The seeing is the clarity, yes.
Yeah.
And also the place to stand. So when Papaji says, just stop, what he's referring to is the moment of clarity is, oh, I am back. Stop. Stop right there.
Mm-hmm.
Don't make it any more, any less. Don't allow the conditioning to overwhelm you again. The judgment, the opinions of the mind. Stop. In the clarity of the understanding, I am here. Now I am back. Full stop.
And yeah, thank you. There seems to be at these moments, like even just as I was coming on to speak and thinking about kind of come on or not, and acknowledging this kind of dance, there can be this feeling of great sadness. And then there's the feeling of, is there something to do with that? Yet it does seem like just feeling that is perhaps all I could do.
Yes, yes. But understand that there's a limit to the usefulness of that. So you've heard me say before, Phil, stand in it. So just be aware that that sadness is there momentarily. But that is different from taking that sadness on, identifying with it, saying, what is this? Why is it here? I have to explore this. I have to solve it. That's different. That's a never-ending mind trap. The Buddha said that the causes and conditions for what is arising in consciousness at this moment are never ending. Meaning, you could spend the rest of your life just trying to answer that one question, why am I sad? Or you can stand in the sadness. No, this is sadness. What is aware of this sadness? Now this is the Advaita way. Because the attention is withdrawn from that tendency to identify with the conditioning and is placed into the momentary here now clarity of seeing that sadness is here, not identifying with it, and letting it go so that it can go at its own pace. It can go the way of
like any phenomenon or sensation, or like it's nothing to identify with or figure out or fix. I mean, all of that is the same kind of thing.
Yes. All of that is the attempt of the essential belief that I am the body-mind complex. That is the ego's way of keeping that identification going, is that thought structure. So what we do is come back always to this recognition that that which is aware, consciousness itself, of this sadness, that is the important feature of the experience at that moment. not the sadness itself. Because anything that can be said about the sadness is going to come from memory. It's going to be wrong. It's going to come from selective memory and so on. It's enough to stay in the sadness. You can feel in that moment what it feels like in your heart, correct? You can feel what it, you can see what it does in the way of disturbing the mind. Yeah. You can, all of those things can be seen, but only from the position of stopping, of observing directly from the position of awareness itself. And then if there's anything that you need to know or that can be known that isn't a mental configuration about what that sadness is related to, that actually comes spontaneously as an insight or as a moment of wisdom. Even then, if it's a true insight, you will realize, all right, that's a beautiful insight. I feel some freedom now from that conditioning. But still, if you attach to that insight the conditioning tendency to identify with body and mind, will come back again. So we just want to remain as that witnessing posture, if you will.
Okay. Yeah.
And by the way, the same thing is also true if the feeling you're having or the experience you're having is pleasure. You know, it's not sadness, it's pleasure. Because in a way it's more insidious. You may have heard me say this before. In a way it's more insidious because we really want to attach to pleasure, don't we? We want to keep it. When everything is pleasant and going along very nicely, and or even it's a peak experience of some sort of pleasure, whether it's food or sex or whatever, we want that pleasure to stay, so we really grasp onto that. And this is a very foundational root of conditioning, is the intensity with which we cling to both pleasure and pleasant and unpleasant, these foundational graspings that happen. And that's why the third way, which is the Advaita way, is the way to remain here now, as this recognition that that which is aware is here now, and it can be aware of pleasure, it can be aware of unpleasant, pleasant, it can be aware of neutral, it can be aware of past, pleasant, past, present, and future without grasping at them. This is awareness itself, is that ability to stand in your own being, in your own heart, in your own love, and be present with whatever is here without identifying with it. This is the way of Advaita, or the way of inquiry.
Yeah. And then there's never any need to guard against anything.
Yes, the result of this kind of continual practice over years is that you become fearless about everything, because what is there to be afraid of anyway? This is the foundation of the talk, of the conversation I was having around whose life is it anyway? When you realize that it's not even my life, it's just life itself which is living, then you begin to trust life itself. The more you trust life itself, the less fear you have. The less fear you have, the more you trust life itself, the less fear you have, and the more things tend to flow in the direction of meaningful life rather than fearful life. Nothing to defend, nothing to hide from, nothing to run away from, nothing to fear. You feel that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Even in just talking about it, we can feel the rest and the relaxation that comes. In a way, for each and every one of you, as I talk about these things, you can be seeing, and I know you are because you talk to me about it sometimes, you can be seeing in your own life the way in which fear can come up, or defensiveness can come up, and then you are able, because you've heard this teaching, you are able to let go in that moment, just a little bit, or maybe a lot, but certainly a little bit, so that each time you do that, each time you stand in your own heart center, in the direct perception of the experience you're having, and you are not reactive, you are open, you are as loving as you can be in the circumstance, then the easier it becomes to remain open under all sorts of circumstances. Without fear. That's what I mean by being open, right? Without fear, because fear is just that giant contraction. When you're doing it, it's like clenching your fist. You can clench your fist for a period of time, but only for a period of time. And that's what fear is. Fear is like this, but eventually your whole arm gets tired, your whole body gets tired, you can't do it anymore, you have to relax. And fear does this, doesn't it? It's just like that. It's just like closing down on your heart and closing down your love, shutting you down. And as soon as you realize that this is fear and I don't need this anymore, I am that which is here and aware of this fear, then you relax that and the heart opens again, and then you can move forward.
Thank you. It's all very helpful.
Good morning, Rishiji, and all.
Good morning.
Risha.
Hello,
Risha
Risha.
here. This is such a good topic for me right now. I've had experiences of flowing into, in a way, that which is aware, or awareness itself. And especially this morning, what a wonderful feeling I had. What a wonderful place I was in, almost touching being awareness itself and seeing everything around me as another focus of awareness. And so then bringing it back to the fear aspect, I've touched into these wonderful places, and yet what's happening in my personal life is a hive of bees that Stanley and I have lived with for 5 years or so, has turned from a docile hive of bees into very aggressive, stinging without provocation, provoking, and
very unpleasant experience.
Yes, and I've gone from this state of sitting with my bees and loving them and being out there with the flowers to fear. I can feel the fear. I don't even want to go out in my backyard anymore. And it's like, exactly like you say, this fear is like a big cramp in my leg or my arm or my heart.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's there, and yet it's really bringing me to this state that I think I'm my body. I think they're going to hurt me. It's really big, and I'm just sitting in it, in the edge of it, and sometimes right in it. And it hasn't seemed to have moved, the fear. It seems to be something I'm holding on to for some reason. And then my question is, what am I supposed to be really brave and just go out there and get stung? Is that the idea? I don't think so.
No, that's not the idea. Of course not. Of course not. Especially if you're going out there in fear, because as we all know, whether it's a dog or a cat or another human, if they're intuitive enough, when we are in the position of fear, this is clearly the animals, creatures around us are clearly in touch with that fear, and they respond to that. So no, please don't go there with a heart full of fear. But the other thing is that, as we understand ourselves more and we are possessed of more wisdom, this is not a get out of jail free card. That by that I mean knowing we are aware, knowing that we are consciousness itself, does not stop us from having the experiences that we are destined to have through our prarabdha karma, or the karma associated with the taking of a body-mind complex, with being born, in other words. So there's always going to be challenges associated with the body-mind. These are not ours. Some of them, however, can be mitigated. So in reference to your bees, you just have to ask, what are the possibilities here? One is for you not to go out while they are in this aggressive state. Chances are, from what I know of bees, is that they may be getting ready to swarm. They often get aggressive before they swarm. In other words, another queen has come into maturity in the hive, and she will need to leave, and she can take a lot of the hive with her when she goes. So this may be what's happening. So I'm bringing that up only because it's a temporary situation. They may swarm. The other is you have them removed. The other is you wait until winter and they go dormant. So you have choices, none of which have anything to do with anything other than find a way to keep your heart open to the situation as it is, without putting yourself in danger. There's no need, when we're involved in spiritual life and spiritual practice, there's no need to put ourselves in harm's way in some way, physically or mentally, in order to prove ourselves to be spiritual beings. That this is a fool's errand, because we don't have any idea why things are coming to us in the way that they're coming to us. But we also have a mind which can, understand in some way what, if not what's happening, it can understand what needs to be done in order to remove this fear from the mind. So if that can be done on an internal level and the whole situation just turns itself around, the bees become suddenly docile again because you have managed to, you have stood in this fear, you've not challenged it and questioned it and said, why is this happening, and blamed yourself because it's happening. You've simply stood in it and said, this fear is here. And as long as this fear is here, I should not go near the bees because they will understand that. So this is my fear. Not my in the sense of owning it, but this fear belongs here. So as long as I'm in your position, I am not going to the hive. Okay, fine. Once the fear is not there anymore, then those other things become options. You can have them removed. You can wait for them to go dormant in the winter. You can wait for them to swarm. All of which is just to say to you, understand that none of it has anything to do with me, with this me that you are associating with. This is just what's here. It's just what's happening. It's happening as an experience in this body-mind that you have. Don't take it personally, and don't be afraid to make a decision, which is also not personal, but which protects you, protects your family, makes it possible for you to live in a harmonious way in your backyard. Yeah. Don't be overly concerned about it in terms of it having some great enormous meaning. It's just prarabdha karma working its way out. So it will be here until it isn't.
Yes, that's beautiful. I feel, I think it's actually kind of neat to have this fear, because before I felt relatively fearless, and now this is a fear that I can really get my hands around. I can look at it, and see what it is. So I'm grateful for that, actually. And then I did take a step. I bought a bee bonnet just so I could go out in the backyard and be out there without the fear.
Very good.
And that felt good too. And then the idea of the fear brings everything back to me again, and me, and a really pronounced me.
Yes.
Which is interesting to look at. Mm-hmm. Because my question now is, who am I? What am I? So standing in awareness and flowing into awareness like I did this morning, it's just a beautiful way to be both ways and see both ways.
Yes, but eventually you'll find that you're going to want to be able to just be able to stand in that awareness itself and recognize that fear is here, but I am not this fear. This fear is not even interesting to me. What is here is awareness of fear, and that's what interests me. So I will stand in that position. Aware of being aware, you can say. You see, it's not awareness of an object. That is not inquiry. So when you say, I'm aware of the fear and it's kind of interesting and all of that, that is just an interesting thing your mind is doing out of the body-mind complex. Mm-hmm. But in terms of this particular way of being, it becomes important to lose interest in all things the mind takes an interest in, and to become interested in that which is aware. So awareness of awareness itself. And this is the foundation practice, if you will. This is the foundation stance that opens the door to the heart to all experiences, so that in whatever the experience is, fear is not arising in it. It's just what's happening, this is what's happening in this moment. But there's not a fear associated with it. Or if the fear is coming, it's just known. This is fear, but the attention goes back to awareness of awareness, not awareness of fear. You see, it's awareness of fear that gives license to all of these thoughts about, is it me? Is it the bees? Have I done something wrong? Is there something I could do? Is there something I should do? All of that this is the body-mind's prarabdha karma, which is playing itself out. But if you want to really cut that at the root, you cut it by asking the question, am I aware? And then noticing, yes, I am aware, and being aware of awareness. I am aware that I am aware. It's, it sounds overly simplistic, but it's the root and the foundation of the practice that gives us the opportunity to see that we are not anything in the experience. The experiences are still happening, but this takes us back to what I was talking about a few weeks ago when I said everything is empty. Everything is empty. There is no me in it anywhere. It's just life itself. Prarabdha karma is going, life is going, I am here in the dance, and none of it is me. This me that I think it is simply does not exist. Look for yourself. You can see this me does not exist. Just because there are sensations in the body, there are thoughts in the mind, there are emotions rising in the mind and heart. This is not the validation that there is a separate me that is here. And this is what the inquiry breaks down. This is what it dissolves. This perception that there is a me and that something needs to be done about anything. What needs to be done, certainly in the realm of experience, happens on its own. So if something needs to be done, you put the bee bonnet on, or you get someone to move the bees, or you stay in the house until the bees swarm or the winter comes. All of that happens by itself, not as a result of some strategy that you're using to reinforce this me idea. If you simply notice fear has arisen in this moment and you stop, again, we come back to this stopping. We don't just stop ourselves from doing something. That's not what's being recommended. What's being recommended is that we stop that mental conversation and we come to the moment of recognition. I am aware of this fear. In being aware of this fear, the fear then becomes like a bell, like a gong in a meditation. Fear is here. We have just struck the gong, the bell of mindfulness. Now we are aware we are aware. Now we are back in clarity and we are back in the inquiry.
That's so beautiful. That just answered another question that my mind had, which is, I'm familiar with symptoms of PTSD and I have worked with this for many, many years and, you know, without necessarily going into inquiry about it. But so what's happening now with my body is a noise will happen and my startle reflex is just right there on the edge, boom, you know, and it just shakes me to the core. And I see it's the bell.
Yeah.
It's the bell.
Beautiful.
It's the stopping.
Beautiful.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Yes. The senses are always there, always open, as long as we are in the waking state. This training enables us to take that sound which startles us and have it reference us back into the heart of being through awareness, rather than, you and I know about this, we've talked about this, rather than having that startled experience take us back to that origin of that PTSD. Yeah? And you know something of my history, so you know that I'm speaking from experience. This is not theory.
Yes, I understand.
Okay. So beautiful. Continue. Thank you for sharing that aha. Yeah. Can you hear the thunder coming close?
So Rishiji,
Hello,
I just
Stanley.
hello, namaste. I just want to share what has happened with me. I get up, I wake up early in the morning and I play. I have a set of crystal bowls and I play them. Well, I also go outside and just do a few little exercises in the moonlight. Well, this week I've been joined by a toad who comes out from under the bridge on our walkway. And pretty soon when I'm exercising, he says, "Aren't you going to play your bowls?" I go in and I play. And he actually sits in front of the windows and listens to me play the bowl. And then sometimes I play the harmonium. But it is so sweet to have that communion with him.
Yeah, beautiful.
For him. and it's a pretty good sized toad. And I just wanted to share that. I mean, it's laughable. It's lovely. It always brings a smile to my face.
Yeah.
And my feeling is, in all the things that are going on the planet, my course correct is to bring a smile to my face. Whatever I can think of to bring a smile. And that toad and I are becoming such good friends that
Beautiful. Beautiful.
I just wanted to share that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, and
thank
also
you.
Risha mentioned the bell. Or you mentioned the bell. What I get is this sound in my ear, and it gives me pause to stop and course correct. Anyway,
Okay, very good.
I'm glad you're having all the thunder and rain. Namaste.
Namaste. So this is the last opportunity for this evening. If you have something, otherwise I'm going to probably go ahead and close things out so that we protect this equipment, since we're already operating with duct tape and bubble gum. Hopefully, the new computer, the old computer, the old laptop will be rebuilt over the next couple of weeks, and we'll get everything back up and running again. And in the interim, we'll continue to try to meet on Sundays. And we'll continue to try to use this laptop that we're using here, but we'll also be in a more limited frame of reference as we have been tonight. We won't be able to use the music and things like that. So it'll strictly be silence or conversations like we've had tonight. So, anyone else? Last chance tonight.
Rishi.
Yes, hello, Mary Louise.
Oh, hi. I am preparing to get back to Silver City, and I just had a wonderful experience happen where I actually had a storeroom locked, and I never used to lock my house. Well, thieves broke into it and stole a lot of my things, and I was so grateful. And
very good.
and I felt so much more free. And then I called Habitat for Humanity to come and even get more things. And I just had to say that I just love that feeling of being freed up. So it was easier for me to,
yes.
to
Very
travel.
nice. Very nice. Very nice. I'm happy for you.
Thank you.
Everything is here that we need, you know? Everything that we need. It's very beautiful. But we only recognize that when we come from this place that you've just described of acceptance and true understanding that everything is happening in the way it's supposed to. Maybe even for reasons that we don't completely understand, but when we accept that this is the right thing for us, because it is happening, then we find a way to wisdom in all of our experiences, whether it be with our material goods or with our houses or with our health or whatever, you know, our relationships. When we are able to see that everything is here to support our awakening, then we can truly live in joy and laugh at the circumstances as you have that are happening in, through, and around us. This is a beautiful example, Mary Louise, of practicing happiness. Knowing that deep within us is this wellspring of happiness that resides in our heart. It's not even mine, but it is there. And sometimes when we can respond to the circumstances in which we find ourselves with acceptance and joy and love and happiness, we strengthen this recognition within ourselves until it becomes the foundation on which we build our relationships and we live our lives. Hari Om Tat Sat. Please be well and happy. Look for us next week.